This is a long page, pretty important, about what I call the game of life. It's essentially, um, since the universe began until now. Um, and it would take this many billion years. Has it been, what, 14 or 17 billion years now? For until this stage, and the idea is that it's kind of like a a game. It's like some of these games that you play on online, like Warcraft or uh, Command and Conquer's, Star Trek, Invasion, Diablo, or Dungeons and Dragons. Anyway, some of these games, you get the idea. You sort of start off piddly, and then you got your you got small weapons, and you don't have any horses, and then it's you start off with the bare minimum, and then you have to work your butt off, and you finally figure out how to farm with using an animal, and then you finally you know you find out that minerals inside mines can make your life easier by making sharper weapons, and it's a progression of life. The game of life, it's a progression, and you get better at certain things, and it just keeps going. And what's happened in the past 100 years has been just an explosion. The past 100, since about 1890, it's been an incredible amount of stuff that the human race has done. If you're talking technology-wise, our life is far simpler and far more luxurious than it was 200 years ago. And I cannot state that with any more emphasis. It's a huge thing that we have done. The problem is that we are really approaching our technological limits. Internet's going to get faster. Computers are almost topping off now. This is March 27th of 2011. Computers are topping off. This computer I've had for about 2 years now. It's going to last probably 2 more years before I need to upgrade. They used to only last about 1 year before you needed to upgrade. In other words, and that's I'm not saying that technology is limited. As I'm saying, that's probably about wrong reference, because we're just making programs that are small enough that they're not taking up as much hard drive space and stuff. So it's probably not the right comparison. But internet speed will go up. But there's just things that are limiting. We cannot do a lot of things that we've seen on science fiction movies, Star Trek, going to the stars, going to the Mars. We cannot go to Mars right now because the solar radiation will kill anybody in that spaceship if they're traveling 6 months in a it's basically it's out there in space. It's a death machine, and space travel is so slow. It's so slow compared to what we need to be. And so the idea is that really somebody like me needs to come along at this time, because somebody that says he's Jesus God and is going to make some things happen, in which he's tapping into what I call godly powers, the supernatural. In order to make things happen on this planet to the next stage of our game of life, it requires the thinking that I'm portraying. That the closed-mindedness that everybody has toward my thinking pattern is incorrect. They need to be thinking what I'm thinking, because we all need to be thinking for the future, and that is, we need to get supernatural. We need to branch into the next stage of the game of life, and that is supernatural, godly powers traveling at the speed of light, And so it's what seems to happen is in the game of life is well, let me talk about this phenomenon called the 100th monkey phenomenon. What happens is that the observation of humans were observing monkeys on two different islands. On one island, the monkeys one started using washing as fruit, and over here none. And this one, then a bunch of them started using it, and more and more started washing their fruit. Still none over here. When a certain threshold was reached over here, a number of monkeys were washing their fruit. All of a sudden, at once, all the monkeys on this island began washing their fruit. It's like we are mentally in tune with each other, and that's a phenomenon that I call it the game of life. That's an example of the game of life, that we are progressing as a species. Every species has this, but that we progress this as a species. Another example in the human species of this would be like the washing of the fruit. That humans, we have technology that we built, and so what we've done is, via capitalism, it's cheaper to have other countries do it for dirt cheap. So what happens is that it's not an overnight delivery like the fruit washing, but fairly rapidly, I mean within 10, 20 years, the whole world will be able to build chips, to build technology stuff that we were only able to do a while back. So it was, whether it's being made, you see the made in China or Taiwan or what, you see all these places. It's capitalism said, hey, in order to do it dirt cheap, we're going to build up this society, and that's what we've done. And so it hasn't been an overnight delivery, but it's been fairly quick that we bring up the rest of society. So we were building ships, now everybody's building ships. Okay, it wasn't overnight; it took 20 years. That's another example of the game of life game of life working. It is this progression in life, this progression and sometimes overnight delivery of this like enlightenment in your mind. It's like, oh yeah, you ever have that where you're like, why didn't I think of that a while back? It is just the way it is. It's the game of life. There's actually a plan in place. It's called God's plan. That's the game of life. It's God's plan, and it puts people in the right places and introduces them to everybody at the right time. You might think that you're in control of your life, but I'm not saying this for everybody, but for me especially, the people that come into my life are there for usually a purpose in my show. And I'm guessing if they were introduced to me, the people involved in their lives were also part of a plan to coordinate that. It's a belief. It's a kind of a faith thing that. Well, you all think that you have free will, but it turns out that we are sort of guided by the game of life. That there's a plan in place for each of us, and giving an example of this, my Truman Show. The True Man and the Truman Show. The True Man, Truman Show, right? Now, I'm a guy who's constantly making punny jokes. I'm constantly taking words and splitting them up and making jokes based off that. I constantly do that. And what was strange is that I did not realize that the Truman Show was the Truman Show. I kept saying, hey, the Truman Show is based on me. It's based on me. I didn't realize that there's a true man in the Truman Show until 2002. I thought that was just completely amazing to me. Like, what? You mean I couldn't think of that a while back? Mr. Punny Guy, Mr. always making fun of words and splitting them up and having fun with the splitting up of words? Wow. So I knew, so I just know that things, and that took 3 years to realize that. I just realized that things take time, and there's a right time and right place for everything to happen. And you just have to be patient. I've realized that. So what else? That example of the people are cast. The people that come into my life are specifically cast. It's not so much. It's not hard driven like that. But if they have a major impact in my life, then they definitely. There's general players, and then there's people that are actually interacting with me, and those people. Are what I call explicit cast members, actually more like implicit, are placed there, and there could be like strange ways that things can happen. It's via this thing magic. I call it re-ravel. If the Game of Life wants to introduce me to somebody, it will restructure itself to put that character in front of me and provide all the necessary background information. In other words, I may need to meet somebody, a celebrity or something, and that celebrity didn't exist in this certain timeline, and all of a sudden that celebrity will exist, and all, that person's parents and everybody associated with it. It could be very strange how it can work. That is. And based on that principle, I even question whether the world even existed before I showed up. And in the same manner, does your world even exist until you're born either? For everybody out there listening to this, you have to question if that can just be made up, if the Game of Life can just conjure up what it needs to make your show worthwhile, to make it's the sky's the limit. You start to wonder. So our universe is 11 or 13 or 14 billion years old, and yet it could just have existed for 43 years that I've been here. Based on that principle, it does make you wonder. It does make you wonder what's going on. And the things that have happened to me, I mean, I got stung by a bee when I was young. It's possible that was a certain chemical that I needed in my body to be who I am today. Or I've been poisoned a lot in the last few years. Perhaps that's needed to become who I'm ultimately supposed to be, right? I could take it personally when people are poisoning me, but I could also understand that, perhaps that's just what I needed, Botulism is a poison that people inject in their eyes to look young, to keep their freckles away. So botulism is a poison. So, but if in the right dosage, then it's okay. So it's all. Sometimes poison isn't as bad as it might seem. There's a destiny in life. The Game of Life. I'm quite sure that introduced my mother and my father, personally introduced them together to have me, and probably their parents were introduced. I'm under the impression that my mom's side, my mom's mother was abducted by aliens, and her eggs were modified. She's had some siblings that are, you call them broken eggs, but basically it's kind of an experiment. What the aliens did an experiment with my mom's eggs, and produced 3 or 4 kids that are mentally, gone. And I guess my mother is, I guess, fairly normal. And it turns out that I would be her offspring, which would be the product of the alien's work. It actually produced something. So there's interaction with outside species. It's not just things. There's outside forces that are interplaying. I'm pretty sure aliens. I don't know if you're aware of it or not, but I'm pretty sure aliens are stopping nuclear bombs from going off, because I'm pretty sure people have lit them off. Aliens are stopping or are disassembling them in midair, or preventing them from even firing in the first place. I hope this isn't a shock to you to find this out. It's pretty obvious to me what's going on. That we have visitors, and I don't know why the media is keeping that quiet, but they are protecting us. They're protecting the planet from destruction. I guess there might be a plot to lose half the population because we're sponging off the planet too much. So those aliens are actually keeping a lot of the chaos, a lot of the population here. And by the way, that reality restructuring thing I call the re-ravel, as long as I haven't heard about it in the news, pretty much anything's fair game. So a celebrity may not be able to do anything, but if God needs to introduce me to somebody, and they haven't been in the news, and as long as I haven't heard about this in the news, I guess I'm the center of reality. So as long as I didn't hear about it, and it makes sense to me, then I guess it's kosher. Things can work. In other words, that magic re-ravel or restructuring, magic does not exist in my reality, and since I'm the center of reality, magic cannot exist. But it will, as long as I can make a plausible explanation for that person being there, and the family tree associated with it, or whatever. Same with events or whatever events that are happening. As long as there's a plausible explanation. In earthquakes, somebody might say it's HAARP. This earthquake in Japan could have been HAARP. They're saying HAARP did it, right? Well, it's also possible the plates move too. But it's also possible that magic was used to create that earthquake, and the reality is that it could be just the plates moving. My show has been a progression. These magic abilities that I've got, they weren't overnight. In my morph, I'd have to physically punch the air in my battle during my morph, and then I could visually just do it in my mind, punching with my virtual fists, and then that transformed into virtual machine guns, and then cannon blasters or whatever it's a progression, and it's like level 2. My level 2 journey introduced me to things like things more magical with going back in the past, going to the future, and playing with that. There's just things that have progressed even in my mind. Things weren't always taken off. Things were progressing at a defined moment when it was time. So to conclude, it appears that we're on a threshold. Everybody's talking about the second coming is going to take us down, and there seems to be, and the things are kind of going haywire in the world. There's earthquakes, there's tsunamis, there's nuclear catastrophe, there's and I think just the way that technology is limited, it's becoming limited, that it is time. I wouldn't be surprised that if my philosophy about godly powers weren't to be more public notice within a year. But it might take, be a little shocking, but it might take 10 more years. It is just that we're at a period, at a threshold in which the game of life is now ready to snap into this new brink of reality. And I just know that it will happen when it happens at the right, and it's going to be guided by God. God's plan is going to do this sometime. I don't know. It's going to be pretty wild, I think, when it does occur. But or maybe it might be slow motion. I don't know. It could be that I just make my way to the stadium or the presidential role or something and do that for a number of years. And I don't know. I don't know what it has, but it just seems like I should be making more of a stage presence by now. Actually, I would have thought that about 5 years ago, but things have been happening in the meantime for the last 5 years. So even if there's still a stagnant show happening, it seems like things are still going on. So even though I still think that we're on the threshold of this breakthrough. So that's the game of life. God's plan, game of life, transforming us into a new, I'm pretty sure into a new reality coming soon. So let's see. The question is when.